Jeff Bezos washes the dishes every night, believe it or not, founder of Amazon. If he could wash the dishes, you could make the time for things. And so you have to build a team of people that are smarter than you to get yourself to the point where you have all these really smart people that are great at the different areas of the business, to the point that you're actually the least smart in the room. I think people can feel when you're just only care about money, and the best people are not going to work with you and work for you if you're not driven by something bigger.
What is harder, to have a Serbian business partner or a Croatian girlfriend?
My business partner, his name is Dragon. He says I'm crazy to have a business partner, Serbian and Croatian girlfriend, but it's amazing. They're both great partners in my life in different ways. Shortly after I met Antonia, my girlfriend, who's from Croatia, and she's so warm and just hospitable and just a great person. And I found out that there's a whole country of people like her. When I was first visited Croatia, I love it there.
Dragi moji, dobrodošli u još jednu epizodu Empire State Balkan Podcast-a. Danas imam gosta koji je pravi balkanski miks, a zvanično nije sa Balkana. Dan je bio najmlađi biznis broker sa samo 22 godine kada nije imao ni za kiriju, a danas je CEO kompanije Voda Cleaning Restoration sa preko 200 lokacija širom Amerike. Čovjek je 2 puta prodao svoje firme, ima biznis partnera iz Srbije, devojku iz Hrvatske i što je najsimpatičnije, letovao je u Hrvatskoj, tako da Balkan, može se reći, nosi u srcu. Dan je imao priliku da radi rame uz rame sa najuspešnijima i da iz prve ruke vidi šta to najuspešnije zaista čini najuspešnijima. Pričat ćemo o mindsetu baš dosta, koji ga je izvukao iz najvećih padova, lekcijama koje je naučio na tom putu i kako je od nemam za kiriju stigao do franšiznog carstva. Očekujte neke iskrene uvide i konkretne savjete za biznis i život i naravno Balkan momente koji će vas inspirisati. Krenimo. Dan, thank you so much for being here. For people who don't know you at all, can you please explain what you do for a living?
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me. Very excited to jump into the episode. I'm Dan Claps, the CEO of a franchise company called Voda Cleaning Restoration. We are a national franchise chain in the water restoration space. So whenever a homeowner has a flood in their house, maybe their pipes break or, some type of water incident, we go and we actually get the water out, make their house dry, and we also do floor cleaning. So we do carpet cleaning, tile and grout. We're currently in 30 states in about 220 markets.
How did everything started? When was this? And how did you come up with this idea?
Yeah. So I've been in the franchise industry for 11 years now. Always been an entrepreneur. I was the kid in, elementary school with a lemonade stand selling lemonade. I sold lacrosse balls to my teammates in high school. When I got to college, I started a staffing and recruiting business. And I always tell people that I'm in the business of helping others become business owners. And I can teach people how to be a business owner because I could also teach them how to not be a business owner. If you wrote a book called How to Not Run a Business, it would be me as the star of the book in college. I had this mindset that if you want to be successful, you have to outwork everyone, which is true, but that everything, if you want it done right, you do it yourself. And so my business in college, I was working 7 days a week. The business relied on me, and I couldn't afford to even get sick because the business would stop running. And so when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to get out of that business. And my dad actually said, why don't you look at franchise businesses? And for anyone that doesn't know a franchise, it's basically like a business in a box, right? You buy into a system, they give you the brand, they give you the playbooks, they give you the way to succeed. So I started with the franchise in 2014 in the business brokerage space. So actually helping other people buy and sell existing businesses. I'm originally
the youngest business broker, right?
I was, yes. I was 22 years old. I started with them. I barely knew how to, tie a tie. I was so new into like the corporate world. But I was successful at it because what I found was the other people just weren't hungry. They weren't answering the phone. They weren't being, out there in the community. And so I got a pretty good reputation as a business broker, in 2014 in that franchise. Did that for about 2 years. And realized that I, again, wasn't really building a business. Like, to me, a business owner, they trade value for money, not time for money. And as a business broker, if you didn't answer the phone and sell a business, you didn't make an income versus a business that runs like through people. And so in 2016, I realized that I was really very good at lead generation. And in everything I had done, lead generation, generating, customers was my number one skill. So I started a lead generation company called Career Transition Leads in 2016. Built that for about 7 years. And one day looked up, it was a pretty big company. It just happened overnight, or not overnight, excuse me, overnight success, 7 years in the making.
Of course.
And one day found myself in a kind of a boardroom with my logo up on a big screen and a bunch of private equity suit type guys saying, we want to buy your business. And so sold that business to private equity in 2022, kind of went out looking at what to do next and fell in.
How did you feel after you sold your business?
The best day of my, at that time, one of the best days of my life was the Friday night that I got the check. One of the worst days of my life was that next morning, when I realized that, my whole purpose and my identity and, this thing that I was so passionate about through all of my 20s was no longer mine. And you quickly realize that, money's great, don't get me wrong, but having a purpose is very important. And so not amazing, to be candid. But then I found a new business, and so now I'm happy. But it was interesting when you build something for so long and it's so much a part of your identity, and then it's no longer yours. It's definitely a unique experience.
What is harder, to have a Serbian business partner or a Croatian girlfriend?
Yeah. So it's funny. I, didn't know a ton about, the Balkan culture prior to now having a Serbian business partner and a Croatian girlfriend. My business partner, his name is Dragan. He says I'm crazy to have a business partner, Serbian and Croatian girlfriend, but it's amazing. They're both great partners in my life in different ways. You asked how the business started. So the business started way before me. I'll tell you the story. So the founder of Voda his name is Dragan, and he moved here from Serbia in 2004. Mm-hmm. Very amazing story. Came here, was a lifeguard, didn't speak any English. Went back after the summer and basically, took the money that he had saved and lived, a nice life in Serbia, and then came back the following summer. After that summer, he went back again and realized that was the last time that, he belonged in America. And so that following summer, he moved back. He was a lifeguard, worked his way through that, ended up becoming a security guard at a nightclub.
That was around Washington, D.C. area? Or
That's right. Yes, in the D.C., Maryland area. Was working there, met his now wife in the nightclub. Later on, they got engaged, and he decided that working there was not where he wanted to work to, go on and raise a family. And I think it's a really interesting story. He was working there for his last couple of weeks. He noticed another gentleman that was always there, seemed to obviously have money that he could be in this nightclub 3-4 nights a week. And he said, I'm no longer working here in 2 weeks. Like, I'd love to work, with you. What do you do? And that gentleman was in the cleaning business. And so Dragan started working originally for him. And then as things progressed, I believe he had to go back overseas, the business partner. And Dragan ended up running that business, and they became true partners, splitting the profits. He did that from 2006 till 2009.
Was it a water business or something else?
At that time, it was mostly floor cleaning, just carpet cleaning, tile and grout. 2009, with a newborn at home, decided to, go out on his own and start, his own. And from that time until the time we met in 2022, over a 15-year journey, an overnight success, 15 years in the making, built this incredible multi-million-dollar business. At the time when they started, his wife was working. She was an electrical engineer for the Pentagon, supporting the family while he was building the business. And then after about 5 years in that time, she was able to leave, and they were able to build this business. And so when we met in 2022, to me, it was the definition of the American dream. He built this incredible company. And what happened was, if you've ever seen the movie The Founder with Michael Keaton, he plays Ray Kroc in McDonald's. it was a lot like that scene. I met Dragan. We went out to dinner. We instantly hit it off. We were just very connected. And then the next morning, I was outside his office saying, "You got to franchise this business." Kind of like that scene where he's out front.
So you found that like connection that you thought it's going to be amazing to be franchised.
I thought the business had the best systems I had seen, an incredible culture. I give you an example. When the day was over, Thursday evening, the teammates could go home, but they were out in the parking lot playing soccer together, hanging out. There was just this contagious culture and systems that he had built.
Is it mostly Serbian people working for him, or was mixed?
Yeah, mix. I think so. So his director of operations, they've worked together for 13 years now. He's Serbian, and he's kind of the main person running the company. They've been working together for 13 years. There's some Serbian and then other cultures as well.
Great. So, and then you were like, you need to build this franchise here. And then, is that how everything started, or what was later?
Yeah. So, well, there's always a twist to any good story, right? So we started talking in October of 2022, and we were, between myself and my team, we were able to acquire the brand in February of 2023. So it took many months of talking and strategizing. And the caveat was a few weeks before we were ready to close on the transaction, I called Dragan up. And the business was originally called DNA Pro Cleaning, which means Dragan and Arlene, his wife is Arlene, and their daughter is Angelina. So really cool name, DNA Pro Cleaning. And the conversation was something like this. I know you don't want to change the name. I'm not going back on the deal we were doing. We're going to move forward either way. But I would love for you to consider potentially changing the name. Because on a national playing field, I think there's another name that could really appeal to the whole country. And how I knew we would have a great partnership is one day I realized, I called him up. I said, I hope you know I'm not trying to change the name of like ego, or because I think, I have a better idea of a name. How about this? When we close on the transaction, let's put in the agreement that it's going to be DNA Pro Cleaning, but we'll use a really sophisticated branding agency. And if they come up with a better name, we'll consider it. And he said, that's a great deal. Let's do it. And that told me right away, if you're in business, you want to have partners that are logical, not emotional, right? Not have an ego. Yeah. And so his mindset was, if there's something better, I would absolutely consider it. So we went down that process in early 2023. And I'll never forget when the branding agency showed us Voda, and hopefully behind me you could show the look of the trucks and the branding, but it's such a beautiful, crisp looking brand. And then the fact that it means water in Serbian is just amazing, because it pays homage to the Serbian roots. And I remember Dragan saying, I never would have thought that I would like a name change, but he loves it.
It's Voda.
Yes.
What a now. Okay, great. We're going to go back to this story, of course, a lot. I have a lot of questions here. Tell me a little bit about, you went to Croatia last year. You went to Serbia also, but just a layover, but also to Croatia, right?
Yeah.
What was the culture like shock for you that you noticed right away? Or
yeah. Well, it's interesting. I do think that there is some level of, just the Balkan culture in general, generalizing, of course, is in my experience, a very warm culture. I see it with Dragan as my partner. And then shortly after, I met Antonia, my girlfriend, who's from Croatia. And she's so warm and just hospitable and just a great person. And I found out that there's a whole country of people like her when I was first visited Croatia. I love it there. I maybe in another life was Croatian and don't know it.
Tell me about the food. Is there anything that it's stayed with you when it comes to food?
Oh yeah, love Graki Azali. Antonia's mom's a great cook, so when I'm there, it's a lot of eating. Here we actually, when we came back from Croatia, we go to, I love jalapy. And for your listeners, I apologize for the
Cevapi, but it's very close.
Poor pronunciation. I love it there. We were there last summer for 3 weeks, and then we went back for a wedding, And then I'm going back in 2 weeks for another wedding. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Did you notice some Balkan mentality that it's probably a little different than American here, or like there's no much difference? What do you think?
Definitely a difference. So I'm third. My grandparents moved here from Italy, and a lot of the things that I grew up with in my family, I see so many similarities. I'll give you a great example. So we were in, as I mentioned, Croatia for 3 weeks, visiting many of Antonia's friends and family. And one of the most interesting differences is, so typically in America, like if you were to stay at my house, right, for a week, and we went out to dinner, the guest actually pays. And in Croatia, the host pays. So we went out to all these dinners, and no one would let me pay. And I remember saying to Antonia, like, I'm in debt. Whenever it comes to New York, I'm going to have a lot of bills. And so, I love that about the culture. Actually, two of her friends, a couple, visited with us recently, and they stayed here in New York, and all the dinners I paid for because of the opposite. So
it's completely different when it comes to paying. It's
switched, yeah. I like your way better. I do.
You like that, or you like US?
I like it when I'm in Croatia.
Then you don't like when
no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, great. You went to Dubrovnik, or you went to
I've
Zagreb?
Been to, so flew to just a layover in Belgrade, and then to Zagreb, Duga Resa and Karlovac, spent a lot of time there, and then spent time in Split. My favorite so far, because I haven't seen everything, but my favorite was 4 days at Mali Lashin. Haven't been to Var yet, but we're going in this summer.
Great. So tell me please, for example, when you were young, and you were this really youngest business broker, how did working as a business broker prepare you for building your own companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. When you're a business broker and you're selling businesses, when you sell anything, you have to really learn the product, right? You have to become an expert. And so at one point, I had about 20 business listings going at one time, meaning 20 different business owners that I was working for to help them sell their business. And I would see one business owner sell their business for $3 million and another for $30,000. And I think the exposure to all these different owners and seeing the patterns of what made someone successful versus not was one of the best lessons I learned in being a business broker. What made a company valuable versus not, seeing different business partnerships work or not work. Just the overall kind of depth of experiences that I had really laid the groundwork to what I'm doing today.
Great. So what is the one thing that you learned about these people who are very successful versus people who probably are not as much?
Yeah. It really comes down to the basics, the things we're taught. It's free to be kind. It's free to be on time, right? It's doesn't cost you money to treat your team well. I found the most successful business owners were, it was really, they were successful for a lot of reasons, were the small things, the soft skills, the intangibles. I also found that the business owners who prioritize building a company that ran without them being involved was key, which, again, to be a business owner, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be wired with a hard work ethic, a hardworking mentality. But then you have to somehow kind of teach yourself to work hard, but not in the business. You have to work on the business. You have to work on making the business successful, not necessarily doing the day-to-day work, which is a tough adjustment as an entrepreneur. But the owners that were selling their business that had done a great job at getting themselves out of the business were always the most successful.
How do you do that?
How do you do that? I think first, I think I mentioned earlier, ego, removing the ego.
Did you remove your ego?
I don't have anything left. Yeah. No more ego.
No more ego.
As a franchisor, you can't have an ego. You're supporting, for me, 90 different franchise owners, 90 different successful business owners that all bring really great ideas. You have to build a team of people that are smarter than you. to get yourself to the point where you have all these really smart people that are great at the different areas of the business, to the point that you're actually, you're not, you're the least smart in the room. You're obviously in that position for a reason. You have a skill. A business owner has a different skill than someone who's working in a business. But I think first and foremost, it's removing the ego and surrounding yourself with people that are better at the different jobs that the business requires.
And what is your best business skill? What do you think?
For me, culture. Creating an environment where, whether you're the youngest, most junior person in the business or an executive, your opinion has weight in the organization, where you create an environment where people can share their ideas, because the best ideas come from the places you least expect. So for example, if you own a restaurant and the janitor might bring you an idea, it's the best idea that even the leadership team didn't come up with, because they're the closest to the problems. They see the things that are going on. And so when you drop your ego and you can listen to anyone and everyone around you, your business ends up making better decisions.
How did you start? When you started, like, I can tell you were very hungry. Is that hunger coming from you being kind of like broke kid as a 22 out of college, or maybe something else?
I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know where the drive comes from.
You still have a lot of drive, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I think it's about building something, you know, bigger than yourself, making an impact in a community and for people that work for you and with you. I do like money. I'm not gonna say I'm not driven to, you know, have nice things, but that can only take you so far. I think you have to want to do more with yourself and your life.
Money. Is that what you think? Is that what you
I do. I think driven by money can take you somewhat far, but to really exceed in business, I think you have to be driven by a deep desire to learn. You want to learn, you want to grow, you want to make an impact. I think people can feel when you're just only care about money, and the best people are not going to work with you and work for you if you're not driven by something bigger.
And the second business, after you sold the first one, you studied something else. When did you start that, and what was that? What was it? So
I had the business in college, and it was in the staffing space, staffing and recruiting.
How many mistakes did you make back then?
All of them.
All of them. What was one mistake? I'm sorry for interruption, but I think this is important. What was one mistake that was the worst but taught you the most later on?
Spending money that it didn't have. Spending money that, you know, they say you don't count the check until it clears in the bank account. I think it was, you know, growing that business without enough infrastructure. Not investing ahead of the needs of the business. Whereas now, I think we do a really great job of seeing where the business is heading and investing in the infrastructure that you need for now. So a great example would be, you know, it's hard enough to be successful in getting a business off the ground. The next test is being able to be frugal with the money that you're earning, keeping your lifestyle a certain way so that you can reinvest the money into the business, because you never know that things can change. You may need more, you may need less. It's important that, and this is probably one of the reasons that not just being driven by money is so important. You have to be able to be frugal with the money that you're earning so you can reinvest it into the business. That business in college, I was more concerned about trying to make as much as I could versus putting it back into the business. So if I could sum up the one mistake in that business, it was that. My second business that I then eventually sold to private equity, I would say the mistake that I made there was I did not hire people smarter than me. I hired smart people, but I was always kind of the best in the room. Whereas with Voda, very intentional about hiring people that are the highest level, that want to win. And a aligning them with compensation that we can win together.
How did you find these people?
Yeah. I think a business owner should be spending 70 or 80% of their time on recruiting. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's a lot of time traveling, a lot of conferences, a lot of building a reputation, a good one, hopefully, and then creating content. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. The more content you create, the larger your kind of net of recruiting grows. And so it started with a clear vision. I was fortunate, I told you about Dragon, to find a great partner. And I was fortunate to bring on an incredible partner as well, our chief operating officer. We knew each other from the franchise industry, just being at many, many conferences. And so having a strong reputation, him having a strong reputation, was able to bring him in, as well as our VP of sales. And then from there, culture starts to recruit the people. If you do a good enough job at the foundation and people are happy working within the company, they'll start to tell friends, they'll start to recruit others.
How many locations do you guys have so far?
So we have 90 franchise owners and 220 locations.
Mm-hmm. So you have, 220 locations, but some owners have more locations, I guess. Correct.
The average owner has like 2.5 territories or locations each. In franchising and home services, it's a territory that a franchise owner works within. And many of our owners have multiple territories, 1, 2, 3 territories typically.
Mm-hmm. Let's explain to people about Voda business. How can you explain in a short, couple sentences what Voda does?
Sure.
In US.
As far as the business, what we do for customers is we go to a home or to a business when they have a water event, whether their pipes broke, their toilet overflowed, there was a hurricane. There's about 14,000 water damage cases a day in America. And it's not just hurricanes. It's, like I said, a toilet overflows or a bathtub or a pipe breaks. So we go, we get the water out, we dry the floors, we cut the drywall. We essentially make the house good as new, and same with commercial properties. Mm-hmm. And then we also do floor cleaning. So we go to homes and clean their carpets and upholstery. That's what the business does for customers. But the business that I'm really in is in the franchising business. And so my customer is those individual business owners that we're supporting and helping them become successful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And they find you on Instagram sometimes, and they learn. That's why you do a lot of social media and a lot of content, right? The
franchise owners? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So social media, content, conferences. There's consultants out there that bring you franchise owners. Mm-hmm. And again, we talked about culture. So the original franchise base came from that, but now our average franchise owners numbers, the revenue that they do as a business is strong. And so they're starting to refer friends and family and kind of grow that way.
And how do you stay focused by having a private life and running this very up and coming and super fast business?
Yeah. I think when you want to grow a business, you definitely have to understand that it's not work-life balance. It's, work-life harmony. Things have to kind of exist in both worlds. And so in a lot of ways, my personal life and my work life kind of blend together. Some of my best friends work in the company now. We've become great friends. I spend a lot of time with them. And I think also having a supportive partner is important too, that is okay with the hours. On the opposite end of that, Jeff Bezos washes the dishes every night, believe it or not. He, the founder of Amazon, washes the dishes. If he could wash the dishes, you can make the time for things. And so I think it's also remembering that, you could take a Tuesday night off and go on date night, or I don't have kids yet, so it's a little bit easier for me right now, but I think it's being very intentional with your time.
Do you travel a lot?
I do. Since we're operating in about 30 states, I'm on a plane pretty much every week or every other week, visiting locations, going to conferences. But I love it. Again, I think that just comes down to balancing as well as you can.
What's your personal definition of success?
Yeah, I think that to me, a definition of success is if you can live where you want, where you want, when you want, kind of, you know, control your time, spend time with who you want to spend time with. You know, money's important, but I think having the ability to have freedom is probably, you know, most important. Being able to do all of that while still building a business with integrity and making an impact. You know, I think to me, when I see someone successful, the business is good. More importantly, their family life is good. Their health is good. My best definition would be, instead of trying to be a 10 out of 10 of anything, I'd rather be a 7 at all 4. So have good family life, good health, good business, you know, good relationship with God. Like, have a 7, not be amazing at 1, but be pretty good at all 4.
But it's again like working with ego thing, right?
Yeah.
If your ego is not that huge, then you can be okay with 7. Is that right?
100%. And there's a movie. Have you ever seen the movie Citizen Kane? It's an old movie. No. It's about this like business tycoon, and someone says to him, you know, making a bunch of money and nothing else. Anyone, you know, not that anyone can do it, but that's not success. I think if you can have all 4, those 4 things is my definition. How do
you actually manage failure?
I think every entrepreneur, or really any successful person, whether it's an athlete, a business owner, anything, you're going to have a lot more failure than the average person, and you'll have a lot more success, hopefully. But for me, it's very much centered around failing is a lesson. You either win or you fail. You either win or you learn, right? And so
there's nothing without a lesson, right?
Everything's a lesson. Try to fail less than you win, or, you know, win more than you fail. But I think the best way to mitigate failing is this quote that I heard, which is, you know, smart people learn from their mistakes. Really smart people learn from other people's mistakes. And so trying to spend as much time as you can reading. I see you have your Atomic Habits book here. Love that book. Reading, meeting other people, getting around successful people that have done more than you, and learning from them. Again, dropping the ego and getting in rooms that you're around people that are more successful than you. That'll help offset some of your failures. If you are going to fail, though, I think you should fail fast, meaning you should get to the lesson as fast as possible so you can move on to winning.
That's hard, because sometimes people tell you, like, if you fail fast, for example, if you give up sooner, maybe you don't know if in the future, probably you weren't consistent enough, or maybe long on the business enough. So that's kind of hard, right?
Yeah, that's like identifying when you like fail or switch gears, like pivoting. Yeah, that's a tough one. I this might not be the most popular opinion. I do believe you're going to cross obstacles, of course, but I think that, you know, when you're on the right path, the obstacles will happen, but doors will open a bit more when you're on the right path. I believe, yes, you should persevere through tough times, but I think when doors just keep closing in a path that you're going down, there's a chance that the direction or the goal you're trying to get to, that's the right goal. And it's not that you're giving up on going there, but you might need to just change the path to get there. And so it's not that you're quitting on a goal. You might just need to change the way you go there.
Do you have like a clear goals about like franchise, or like for example, you know, approximately how many locations you guys want to sell or open in specific year? Because this was very fast. Like in a year, I guess in less than a year, you guys had like 90 locations or something, right?
24 months. 24 months, we got to, 90 franchise owners.
But like more locations, right?
220 locations.
Correct.
Yep. I think that, for us, we actually had pretty clear goals from day one of where we wanted to be on a monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis. And fortunately, I've kind of always hit those goals. I think it's important to plan ahead and then work your way back. For example, I know our goals of, where we want to be next month, next year. and then just kind of working backwards.
So for the second business, tell me a little bit more about that. So before you sold it, for how long you've been building that business before you sold it?
Yeah,
what
so
was that business about?
It was a lead generation business in the franchise industry. Started
very
that
niche, right?
Very niche. Yeah.
Not a lot of people do this. Am I right?
No, it was probably 5 or 6 other companies. I think there's power in finding an industry where you can be not only the, like they say, the riches are in the niches. Like you want to be the category king or queen. And so you want to be the absolute dominant force in that space. And so, for example, you know, if I was in any business, I would try to find, I don't want to just be in the personal training business. I want to be in the personal training business in New York City for, you know, a specific niche of people that I relate to. And so for me, having been a franchise owner, having been a business broker in the past, getting into lead generation, I was able to sell my services to people I could relate to because I had been in their shoes. Now as a franchisor, I can relate to franchise owners because I've been in their shoes as well. So with that lead generation business, started in 2016, exited in 2022. So a good amount of time.
It's also 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
Did you feel a little better after selling that business?
What's that?
Did you feel a little better comparing to the first time you sold business? You felt a little depressed and you felt a little down and stuff.
Yeah, you know, I think that the second time I realized, so you talked about success. Over a period of time, I realized that your business is your net worth, not your self-worth. And so, you know, building your life outside of work and having, you know, realizing you have people that care about you, you have your health, you have family, like these are things that another business can come and go. Those things are a little bit harder to obtain. So I think that as I grow as an entrepreneur, I realize more and more that the business is a vehicle to get to the goals of where you want to go, the impact you want to make. I have no interest in selling Voda, at least for a very long time.
Why is that?
You know, I think that so this business is a little bit different. The customer is the franchise owner, and the franchise owner often gave us their life savings, close to it, to open that business. And they bought into the business. Yes, they love the brand. Yes, they love the systems, but they bought into the business because of myself and the leadership team's vision and culture. And so I just think it's a little bit strange if you bought from me and you said, Dan, I'm going to work with you for the next 10 years. And then next month I said, hey, sorry, here's another person you're going to work with. I feel a duty to that franchise owner base. Also, selfishly, you know, I'm nowhere near done. We're going to build a much larger business. And so I love what I'm doing. Why would I leave something I love? Things could change, but that's definitely how I feel right now.
When you were a young broker, what was the paycheck you saw that was the biggest one? The transaction doesn't need to be a paycheck. The transaction from like a business that somebody sold a business. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Early in. So I started as a business broker. Remember I told you the mistake of cashing checks I didn't get? So for the first 6 months of being a business broker, I kept thinking deals would close and they would keep falling apart.
They never closed.
They wouldn't close, but I spent the money that as if I got the commission. And so I remember 6 months into being a business broker, you know, it costs money to become a business broker. You have to put money in. And I was running out of money, like really badly. Like I was, you know, I think I remember, you know, I was in my early 20s. I remember like moving my car around the neighborhood, afraid the people that take cars from you when you can't pay the bill was going to come and repossess it. I had this deal that was a clothing store, franchise actually, 3 locations, and husband and wife built an amazing business, and they were selling it to these other 2 twin brothers that were buying it. And we're close to doing the transaction, and we all go to lunch. And remember, the people that own the business are going to make millions of dollars, and they're also making multi-$100,000s in profit. The twins buying the business are worth a lot of money, but I'm the broker, so I have to pay for lunch. And I remember giving them my credit card, hoping it would go through, because I was like, at that point, I was like maxed out. So I remember being at the closing table, and this was a $2 million sale. So the commission to myself and the firm was, 6 figures. And I remember right before we went to close, the other business broker said, "Don't get too excited. These things can fall apart in the closing room." And about 10 minutes later, an argument ensued between the owner and the seller and the buyer. And we're thinking like, oh no, like this might not happen. And then it ended up closing. And I remember the buyer, who I had built a great relationship with, said like, "Dan, what are you going to buy with this check? You're going to buy a Rolex?" And I'm thinking like, I'm going to pay my car bill that's late and, all the money I borrowed. So, but yeah, that was a $2 million deal, and something just to kind of tie that up that was interesting. We're in this like big boardroom, like an attorney's office. And these two twins that were buying the business, a lawyer comes in, they sign something, and then they look up and they go, "That's going to fund this." They had sold real estate in the room, made like $3 million from that, and then bought this business with $2 million of it. And just watching this money transact.
They did it right away, basically right there.
Yeah, they were like, "We sold this," and then they wrote a check for $2 million to them.
How much did it help you later on for like your numbers and your like deals and stuff like that?
I think seeing that much money and later more money, but seeing that much money move around, and then realizing, and I don't mean this in an egotistical way or an arrogant way, but they're not that much smarter than me. They're, these people, like, there's no difference. They took the risk. They went after it. They bet on themselves. They believed in themselves, and then they took massive action. But I think seeing success is, typically you'll find that the person is not necessarily any different than you. They don't know what they're doing either, but they took a step. And so I think seeing at a young age people making money selling businesses definitely opened my mind to a bigger picture.
And you think that's like what separates people who are successful? They're not afraid. They fear, of course, but they still push forward, right? They still try and fail and try and fail.
Yeah.
And that's what makes difference for people who succeed all later on, right?
Yeah, they don't get hung up on over analyzing situations. I just saw something on Instagram, and he was saying how he was a pretty wealthy guy, and he was hanging out with two other really wealthy people and another guy that wasn't wealthy. And all night they're smoking cigars and having drinks and talking around the fire pit about different stories through their businesses. And the guy that wasn't wealthy said, "I'm not jealous of any of you for your money. I don't have any stories. When you're a business owner, like this business partner stole from me, then I made $1 million here, then I lost it all over here, then I put it, it's the journey that you go through. Money doesn't make the person, but the making of the money makes you, meaning you have to keep growing to be more successful." So I think what I saw was just the people that were successful were lifelong learners.
Mm-hmm. And what is the best business advice you ever received in your life, and why?
I think the best business advice I've ever received would be this concept of hiring people smarter than you. Just to clarify, it doesn't mean that they're, they got better test scores than you or went to a better college than you or something like that. It's that they're smarter at that specific thing. They're better at that specific thing than you are. And so, you hire an accountant, you hire a salesperson that's better than you. You hire a person to operate the business that's better at operating businesses than you. And you just kind of keep hiring yourself out of each role in the business.
So you find a system that will work, and every system has specific areas, and you find people who are in these areas better than you and then create even better system. Is that correct? Yeah.
And just to give an example, like these are, I'm talking on kind of a bigger company scale, but if you had a small business and it's just you and a couple people, and you're maybe doing a few $100,000 in revenue, the second thing I would say would be creating environments where the people that work for you can have a business within your business. So I'll give you an example. If I owned a restaurant, and even if it was a small restaurant, and I found a young person that was hungry and motivated and I believed in them, maybe they don't have any capital to put toward the business, but I would say, listen, this business, we're going to grow it together. You're going to put the sweat equity in, and after $50,000 in profit as a business, every dollar after that, you're going to make 20% of it. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to get this thing from 50,000 in profit to 200,000 in profit. And then although I have to give 20% to this person on the 150 additional, I'm going to end up being more successful because I gave someone else an opportunity to earn with me. And so sometimes I've heard people say, like, some of my advice kind of applies to the bigger business. It's not the case. You could start out right now, with a small idea, but bring people in where they can be a part of the growth and they actually make money doing it. That's the best advice, aligning people to the outcomes of your success.
Do you recognize these people so much easier now than before? Do you recognize that hunger? Like, do you think that hunger is probably the number one thing? It's the most important for later on?
It's a great question. Yes, I recognize it now more and faster. I don't know if it's necessarily because I can see it from an interview in a room like this where we're just talking, but I've learned to spend a lot more time when I'm interviewing someone in areas that most people wouldn't. Mm-hmm. So to give you an example, we're in the middle of bringing on a pretty high-level executive to our company. We'll have probably 5 or 6 dinners before we ever move forward. Maybe play some golf, talk about not necessarily religion, but talk about like values and, almost like dating to a degree. Like I really spend a lot of time getting to know people, not for what's on that piece of paper on a resume, but for who they are.
And what are you looking for the most? What is something that it's crucial for you? A few elements.
In our business, obviously hunger, an insatiable need to make an impact. I look for the little things. So I'll give you an example. Once we were at someone's house, some of my team, and we're in the basement filming some videos, and everyone's downstairs, and this former teammate went upstairs to go use the bathroom. For some reason, they also went upstairs to where the bedrooms were. It's kind of a strange thing to do, right? Like, you're kind of taught, like, stay out of the upstairs of people's homes. That was a very strange thing to me. Not returning a text message, not being polite to the waiter or waitress, speaking disrespectfully about their spouse, like sharing too much negative information about their previous employer, complaining about things and taking no ownership of perhaps it was them too. Like, it's those small things that you look for that are not on the resume that I really look for.
What about habits?
Habits, absolutely. I definitely find myself gravitating toward people that are exceptional in something. I definitely am particularly interested in people that are very strong at something outside of their work. I think that's just a fascinating thing that shows discipline. Maybe they're really great at, a sport on the side, or they play in a band and, in nights and weekends, yet they're still at a high level of success. I think that, people's habits make a huge role. I obviously don't discriminate against people's physical shape or anything like that. But I think when someone shows that they're, you obviously must eat well and work out, like that discipline, I think that says something. Again, that's not always the case. We're not hiring based on those metrics, but
shows something.
Yeah. Seeing something that, and then I would say too, another option, I definitely find myself, and I'm a little bit of a bias or unbiased in this, that I'm not yet married, but going very well with Antonia. I love when I see people are prioritizing their marriage or their relationship. Again, that's not, things happen that, I'm not going to judge someone based on that, but it's just an overall picture.
It shows you stability also. It shows you somebody stable. It's not going to, starting going out all the time and drinking and all of this.
Yeah. And it could be, it could be one of those three, it could be there, again, there's nothing wrong with someone being single, of course, but maybe they show a different level of discipline somewhere else. Or it could be that they were hyper focused on their career. There's all kinds of scenarios. And so there's not this one, thing that I look for. But it's kind of accumulation. I guess to your point, over this many years of now being an entrepreneur, it is a bit of an intuitive feel at this point.
It's experience also.
Yeah.
It shows you. You had a chance to go to Croatia for a little bit, a couple of weeks. And did you notice that maybe, what's your opinion on that probably people from Serbia or Croatia underestimate how smart they are?
Absolutely. Do you mean when they live here, or saying in
just like if you had a chance to spend some time with some Croatians or Serbians there, do you think that underestimated how smart they are in general?
Yeah, I have an interesting view of intellect. So of how smart someone is. I how like some people could be really in shape just kind of naturally. It's not that many people. Most times you're in really great shape because of your habits, your eating.
But there are like few percent of people in the world who don't work out and look amazing.
Yes.
Very few, but
yes. So let's leave them out of the equation. But overall, it's like you could be in shape if you choose to be in shape. I think that our brains, to some degree, there's variables, but I think we're all have the potential to be very smart. It's about the desire to learn and the way that you think and
being curious,
acting boldly. So, I mean, maybe because I'm in Croatia with, it's not like I'm staying in hotels as a tourist. I'm really in the culture when I'm there. It reminds me so much of growing up. In some ways, Croatia reminds me of how America was when I was a kid.
Tell me more.
Growing up, it's not like this now, at least in the Northeast. But when I was growing up, we were eating dinner at our neighbors' houses. We were going in and out of each other's houses. There was no one locked the doors.
Did you like that culture better before?
Of course. Yeah. And, people like, it just felt like, and maybe it's because I was a kid, so I didn't realize how much more my parents were working and I didn't realize it. But to me, it seemed like, everyone was working hard, but there was a lot more community. In Croatia, there's that community. People want to help you a lot more than they do here. Obviously, the food is healthier. But when I'm there, and I just find that I'm working because it's not like I'm turning off when I'm there. I do have to keep working. I'm working just as much, but I'm enjoying meals more, and it's a special place. If you're, if you've never been there, it's very hard to explain. But I'm sure you know what I mean.
Yeah, I have. I love it there. It's the same, very similar, like mentality as the Serbian, Croatian people, and all of these people from ex-Yugoslavia. And I love asking people on the podcast who actually had a chance to experience that, because for some reason, we have this problem with a little problem that's I noticed, not everybody. And then, of course, I think we are great and very, very smart people. We do have a small issue with the mindset, meaning that we think that we cannot really build. In US, you go and you build one business and you fail and you start again next day, and nobody's actually will come to you and say, okay, you're a failure. But back there, like people like a little afraid to put some more risk just because they don't want to feel as a failure. And we notice that we talk a lot during this podcast. So that's why I wanted to kind of check with you. Did you notice that or not?
I definitely can understand. You guys are very competitive in sports. I know that.
Yes, that's.
I don't even mean professionally. I mean just playing sports.
But that also in business, you can see that as well. People who are competitive in sports as you know, in Voda, and you see these people like before, like when the company was called before, you saw them playing soccer on Thursday night, for example. You see competitiveness there. That competitiveness will go to work as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, I see it at home. You know, Antonia, my girlfriend, her work ethic is incredible.
Who works harder?
Who works harder?
Just be careful now. She's gonna watch this.
She works very hard. Who works harder or who works smarter?
Let's say both.
I would say maybe she works harder. Mm-hmm. I think I might work smarter. But
now,
yes.
know, if you compare yourself probably like 5 to 10 years ago, that was not.
In all seriousness, right? If someone, and this is not to plug her, but in real estate, she's amazing. Like she makes cold calls. She was on the podcast a few months back. Makes cold calls, is going so above and beyond for her clients and doing things that I've never really seen anyone do. But it's that mentality of wanting to win and be successful. And, you know, listen, I have a very unique lens in dating her and also in having Dragon as my business partner. I fully understand the privilege of growing up in America and now understanding in any culture, not just in Balkan culture, but to move to America from any country, in a lot of ways, you're starting from the day you move here.
100%.
And you have to remind yourself that that person's actually only 10 years into their life in America, because yes, of course, skills you learn there translate, but you are starting from zero. And I've really grown to learn that. It's what makes my relationship with Dragon strong, where I know that how incredible it is for him to move here, start a business, get it to a certain point. Yeah.
Before that, it's crazy.
And now be, you know, the founder of a, multi-state, growing franchise brand. And again, lack of ego, not having the ego to allow me to be able to usher that growth. And for me to remember that, we wouldn't be here without him either. Right. And so, to answer your question, it's hard for me to answer because I don't know the opportunities there. I do find myself looking around and thinking it would probably be hard to start a business there. But as far as people that come here, I'm not sure. Well, what do you see?
No, people who come here after like 5 to 10 years, they're starting to get this mentality. It's definitely like you're becoming like, I still don't see myself as a New Yorker, but I definitely, been working with clients for 10 years here. And I got this mentality. What I noticed though, that is, at least for me, I'm coming from a little smaller place in Serbia. People from Belgrade may be a little different, and it depends how they came here. If people came here just for school or just came for beer like opportunity, these people are like a little different in a mindset. The whole topic is about mindset here. We do have this kind of limited mindset. We believe that, don't get me wrong, we are so strong people and very, very, I would say, very smart. And we know how to, as much as what you said before, it's like we kind of tend to know a lot of different things, but we're not like back home, we're not specialized for one thing usually, because I would say we have this talent to be good in multiple things. But again, I believe the biggest impact, the biggest business people are actually specialized one thing. But just to explain what I wanted to ask you is that mindset from Serbia is a little different, or Croatia, than raising your kids or having somebody who is like you, like born here and then have a little different mindset. For example, you start business, you fail, you start business, you fail, you start business, you fail, you learn, you go, you move forward. Yeah. It's not like that because we don't have as much opportunity back home, I would say.
Yeah, I also think it also has to do a lot with your immediate family, culture or not. I'll give you a great example. So I was in college. I didn't graduate college. And I remember at the time being like the black sheep of my family, not at Christmas and Thanksgiving, what are you doing? This is a mistake. It was a bit embarrassed. But I was fortunate to have my dad.
So you dropped off your college, right?
Yes, dropped out of college. I was fortunate to have my dad, which I don't know if you remember saying this, but I always do, which was at that age, your parents can help stop you from doing things. They can make it difficult to go against their will or their way. They can make you feel really ashamed, or they could financially make it difficult, etc. And I remember my dad saying, I don't want you to drop out of college. I'm not going to stop you, but don't blame me if it doesn't work out. Meaning, like, I'm going to give you I mean, of course you have the freedom to do it either way at that age, right? You're over the age of 18, you can do it. But he's like, I'm going to, believe in you and help you, achieve what you want to do. But if it doesn't work out, I wasn't the parent that made you go to college, and you might regret later that I wasn't. And him not making me feel like a failure or an embarrassed, and, believing in me really made a huge difference. Same with my mom, and same with some of my family. The ones that didn't, I loved them. But that fueled me too. If they didn't believe in me, that was okay, because I had someone believe in me. So I think if you have just one person in your family that believes in you and supports you, it can make all the difference.
A close group doesn't need to be a family if there's nobody there. Even friends or somebody else doesn't need to be someone from family.
Somebody that you respect that believes in you can take you very far.
Got it. Is there one thing that you picked up from Antonia as your habit now, or maybe when you were in Croatia, you picked up any habit from there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I used to wake up and just go right to working. We typically do enjoy breakfast together. It takes 10 minutes, 20 minutes, making the time for the small things like that. Another habit that I would say that I've picked up from her is just more than ever, just not sweating the small things, not getting caught up in nonsense, and just, worrying about, the good things. She's great at that. When I'm over there, I find myself enjoying breakfast, lunch, and dinner all day, which is great. But just trying to live the day a little bit more versus just working every second of the day. That was something I used to have more of a habit of doing.
Perfect. What's the most important habit for a successful entrepreneur, if you can choose one?
The mindset that success is earned every day. It's like rent. You have to pay the rent of success every day. So you have to wake up, you have to do the good habits, you have to, if you want to stay healthy, you have to be healthy. If you do that, you paid your rent and you get those nice things that day, but the next day you got to do it again. And so I think just understanding that you're better off working, remember I said the 7 or 10? I'd rather be working out and working and doing all the things at a 7 every day versus working really hard at a 10, 3 days. And so it's a marathon, not a sprint.
And how do you prioritize, for example, if you have 10 different tasks? So how do you find what's the most important to do?
What's the one thing that's going to make the most immediate impact to the business? I think any business owner should focus on the one thing that's going to either make the product better or bring in money. And more times than not, bringing in money can give you the cash to hire great people to help make the product better. And so I think sales cures all, is the saying. I think what's the number one thing you can do to bring in revenue, and then who are the right people you can hire to help make the service or the product better.
And for you, that's sales or something else for your business?
So in our business, it changes as the business has grown. When we first launched, I spent 10 hours a day trying to convince people to buy a franchise myself. I was on the phone talking to
selling,
talking to, and then at one point, a year and a half ago, that ended. I don't spend any time talking to prospective franchise owners outside of once a week on a call and once a month in our office. Now I'm spending most of my time trying to find great people that can influence the business. For example, right now we're looking at a financial, like a CFO. That's my number one priority because that's going to make a direct impact on the franchise owner's business as well as ours. And then also, we're looking toward national accounts, like relationships with insurance companies. If I did that all year and that's all I did, it would make a massive impact. And so it's like zeroing in on the one or two things that really move the needle and then hiring people to do all the other things. Again, at a certain size, you can't do that right away.
Got it. And how do you, for example, when hard times come, how do you keep your people motivated to work?
I think that, again, it goes back to they have a share in the business. So using that restaurant example, if I had a GM that could make 20% of the profits, when things are hard, they're going to be not making the money either. They're not just making money, even though we're not. And so they're going to be motivated to want to make the money again. But I think the number one thing is you have to stay calm. If the leader is chaotic, then people will panic. So you have to stay calm in those tough situations.
How do you stay calm?
I think that's the skill you have to work on. You have to realize that not staying calm is not going to accomplish anything. Staying calm, at least you'll have people that look up to you. And what you can remember, because I've been through many tough times, the tough times will end and how you acted then will live on forever. And so if you can get through that tough time, you know that you're going to have this amazing business when you do. Also, I think that the way that you keep people motivated is a CEO's job is really 5 things. It's to cast a vision. So get people to see the vision clearly. Number 2 is to secure buy-in. So get people to buy into the vision. And the way you do that is you get them to voice how they feel about it. And then you make a decision. 3, it's to provide resources, whether it's capital, people, tools. Maybe you just need, if I owned a podcast business, maybe it's just better microphones or resources. 4 is holding people accountable. And 5 is being a cheerleader for them. In the tough times, you have to be, number 5, the cheerleader more than ever. You got to celebrate the small wins. You got to keep casting the vision. Just like if we were rowing a boat to shore and we were in the storm, I got to keep really casting the vision and cheerleading and getting you to visually see we're almost there. We're almost out of this. And so it's staying calm. It's motivating people with a clear vision. And it's, you'd be surprised how those little compliments, how far they go.
What if something is really tough and you kind of don't, did you have a chance that you don't believe it can be better? Did you have a chance? Did you have like a situation where you're like, oh my God, this is falling apart?
Yes.
I can't even motivate myself and I cannot motivate anybody else. What do you do then?
Share that. I think that calmly, but I think when you're leading people, nobody wants to work for someone who's perfect. You ever met someone that they're never wrong? They've never said sorry. They've clearly never made a mistake, at least in their mind. I think a great leader, so for example, if I was in that situation, and let's say we were working together, I would probably say, listen, there's a chance we won't make it through this. I'm not sure. I've never really been in a situation like this. If you were in my shoes and you had to make the decision on what we do next, what would you do? And I would either, if they had an amazing idea, I would go with their idea. Because again, remember, the person closer to the problems might actually have the solution. And if they didn't come up with the solution, they're going to attach themselves to me more than ever because I truly and honestly was listening to their perspective. I think the authenticity of explaining where you're at, maybe not saying I don't know if we're going to get there, but like, this is the worst situation I've ever been in the business. I've made it through many things. We've made it through many things, but this is going to be the most challenging thing. When we come out to the other side, we're going to be victorious. But I'm curious, what do you think we should do to get out of this? And if you even could take a inkling of their vision of how to get out of something and apply it, they're going to run through walls because people typically work harder on things that are their idea.
I like that.
I
like that because you also give them opportunity to tell their perspective as well. And if they're part of the team, you're like in the same boat.
Yeah.
Did you ever have that kind of situation that you were like feeling really down and you're like, this might be it?
Yeah. So I told you the story. We acquired Voda in February of 2023. I had done okay on my previous exit sale, but not retire on a boat or anything like that.
You did well.
Most of my capital, a good amount of my capital, went into Voda.
Mm-hmm.
I had real estate, I still do. I personally guaranteed assets. I had an insurance policy that if I died, the bank would get paid back. Like I was worth more money dead than alive.
Mm-hmm.
I put all of this energy into Voda. And we launched in April of 2023. Started to try to sell franchises. And no one was interested in our business.
For how long?
May passed. No one was interested.
A couple months.
June passed. No one was interested. We're losing about $70,000 a month in payroll just to support all the people that work at Voda at that time. It's bad. I go to a conference for franchise companies, and the CEO of a large trampoline park is telling a story how he almost failed before building this huge trampoline company. And he said to his wife, honey, the difference between us being broke and super broke is pretty much the same. We might as well go all in. So they put more capital in and they got themselves through it. Well, that hit me right in the chest. I remember flying home and I said to my team, we got to go all in. Something like we got to put more capital in. Our mindset's got to be there. And, we got to go all in. And not to get too personal, but at the time I had some other things going on personally. And just like, it was just like the worst time. And July 2nd, we ended up selling our first franchise and then another on the 8th. And then it just started to...
What was the first one?
First one was in Dallas, Texas.
Did you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Because we were... my VP of development and I have become very close. He's the head of like bringing in franchise owners. And the guy that was... Think about how hard it is to get someone to buy something that no one else has done before. It's a franchise, but no one's done it.
You can't even tell people that you sold not even once. It's so hard to sell.
Zero, right? But believe in us in this idea. So this particular guy was pretty close to being ready to buy. And I think Steve said, oh, we're actually going to be in Dallas for some meetings. Like we should get dinner. And I don't even think we had like a meeting in Dallas. We just flew there just to meet with him. And he knows this now. And we go out to dinner and we get this.
It was not a meeting, right?
It was that?
It wasn't a meeting.
No, we just went there to meet him. And we get steak dinner and we're having wine and his wife is there.
Like rich.
Yeah, just try to get him drunk to buy it. I'm just kidding. And we're at dinner and he's excited to move forward. And at the end of the night, he says, guys, I have one more question for you. And he pulls out his phone and he opens his bank account. And he says, this is all the money I have. I sold my house to do this business. Do you think I should buy one territory or two? And the difference in price is like 60,000 versus 100. Mm-hmm. And we could have used $100,000 versus 60.
So 60 for one, 100 for two.
Correct. And we look at his bank account and we basically, knowing that this could kill the deal, we basically look at him and say, no, we don't think you should buy two. And candidly, we're not going to allow you to buy two. You got to buy one. And he could have been like, no, I'm if I can't buy two, I'm out. But we knew that two was too much money for him at that time. He ended up buying one. I think we blocked off the other one for him for a little bit. Like he ended up getting two, but we did the right thing in that situation. That franchise owner is one of our top franchise owners now, and is a great partner.
Meaning that he makes the most money, more money.
He does very well. Yeah, yeah. He does great revenue, and he's very engaged in the system. But doing the right thing when it was the hardest was not easy. And I'm not saying that to be virtuous, and it's just that was a really, really taxing time. I was probably 25 pounds heavier. It was just a very, very rough time. And And my answer to you is that we just kept going. Now, if to my other point earlier, if he still didn't buy and no one else bought and the path wasn't working, I probably would have looked at bringing on some type of partner or something, because I wasn't
to save, but you probably wouldn't just give up.
Remember I mentioned like the goal was still going to be the goal. I would just have to go a different route. Mm-hmm. Obviously I wanted to go this route and it worked out. But there's no world that I'm alive that it will not succeed. Like the goal is for Voda to succeed. The path might change to get there, but we're never going to stop the goal. And that's my point. If you want to climb a mountain, like maybe you try climbing it one route and it doesn't work. That doesn't mean you give up. You go a different route up. But your goal is success, or your goal is a business being successful a certain way, then you keep going. If eventually you realize that business isn't working, you didn't give up on your goal of being successful. You're just shifting to a different path to get there.
Because you really believed in a business, right?
Yeah.
If that's not the case, you wouldn't do that. But this is like you believed in this system, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you see amazing franchises versus the ones that are not.
Franchise companies that succeed believe they're building something bigger than themselves, and they remember that their customer is the franchise owner. Their customers, those individual business owners.
So you want them to succeed and then you feel good.
They succeed, we succeed. Mm-hmm. They refer friends and they grow. And so obviously we can't control everyone. We're not, we can't make them successful. Like they have to do the work, but you have to try everything in your power to help them succeed.
What is the number one sales tip for closing a deal?
I know it sounds cliche, but listening.
No, it doesn't.
Listening more than you talk.
Like during the podcast.
Well, you're a great podcast host. I'm talking a lot only because you're bringing it out of me. But if I were to be in a sales environment or a negotiation, I'm going to talk probably a third of the time. I'm going to spend the time listening because people will tell you what they want. And then the last thing I'd say in selling is, if you could figure out truly what they need and communicate what you need, typically if you're open with each other, you can get to a result. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. I'm negotiating right now with this potential executive we want to bring on to the company. And I just told him exactly where I want to be, what I need. He told me where he's at. And usually if there's a disconnect, there's some root reason, there's some concern. And so I think the best salespeople learn how to listen and find the actual, challenge or problem.
How did you learn to listen? Did you learn from experience? Did you learn because you heard other people say listening is important? What do you think helped you the most?
Probably a combination of reading books and listening to podcasts, being told I talk too much. Mm-hmm. I think it's just, if you want to be successful, I would almost argue, just like we talked about the gym, that almost every successful person, there's a direct correlation between the amount they either read or learn, like they learn, whether it's reading or doing or watching. You have to constantly want to learn. And so for me, I've read Atomic Habits. I read a book a week, give or take. And eventually, if you self-development business books, mm-hmm. they all start to say the same pattern. And so that's really where you start to learn. It's not from one thing or another, it's just over time. But yeah, when you're selling, it's all about listening.
And then when you listen, you actually hear what is their need. And then you come up with the one thing you mentioned is also to present your need, right? How do you do that? How do you explain people in a way that you don't sound egocentric about, like with passion, or you want to tell what they want to hear? How do you do that?
I need a scenario. Do you have a hypothetical?
Yeah, let's say you want to bring this guy to your team, and you're like try to sell him like yeah. Like for example, he comes and said, "Look, I really want to grow. Like I want to make more money. I want to be part of the team because I feel this is an amazing system. But I'm not sure, like this is a franchise. How would you approach that?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. Like, so in that type of role, like typically there's a equity incentive to be part of the business. And so like, let's say, you know, if you were that person and you were to say like, I really want to be at, you know, this number, I might say, well, that number is actually more than my co-founder's number who started with me and took the risk.
Got it.
You have a lot of experience, but I just help me understand this. I'm going to go back to him and let him know that we're going to give you this number. It's double what he has. How do you think I should explain that to him?
I mean, this is not easy, but yeah.
In this scenario, if the person truly believes that they're worth that number and that it's not crazy that that's double the other person's, then they'll explain a legitimate reason, which could be legitimate. And then you can actually take that and think about it. But usually because in the case of someone being, you know, over, let's say the reasonable number, they're going to not be able to. They're going to realize, or I'll give you one more example. If I was selling a floor cleaning service and I don't know, it was $500 and you were like, well, I want it for $50, right? I would say, all right, hey, I'm with you. It's not my business. I'm just here to clean the carpets. The price is $500. I'm going to call my boss. I'm going to ask him if we could do it for $50. Everyone else paid $500. Can you help me can you give me a way to explain that to him? Now, let's say you say, well, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but my brother's a plumber and, you know, he's going to can refer you a ton of business. I'd say, okay, so if we do this for $50, you're going to connect me to the plumber, like here, while we're here. Yes. Okay. Now I call my boss and he says, absolutely do that. Right. It's a discount to get.
Yeah, I get it.
Or you don't have an answer and then we can't do it, but you don't know. Like, I think it's just about getting to the root of why someone thinks that something could be that way. Or they're like, well, my dad, you know, my grandfather said it's $50. It was $50 in 1920. But you got to get to the root of why they're thinking whatever they're thinking before you try to sell.
You can also tell if they actually mean that or just trying to get more money. Like, when it comes to like about this guy who wants to work for you. But let's say, how would you sell to me the franchise if I want to buy it, for example? How would you explain to me that like I kind of want to open the business and I think it's great and in my city nobody does this and I'm like, okay, this is an amazing opportunity. What would you say to me?
If I got to know you and I thought you had potential in owning a business, which I think you do.
Let's say I want to do it.
Yeah. I think
tell a little bit based on my questions, maybe like my type of personality.
The first thing that I would say would be, look, you're going to be successful whatever you do either way. You could do this business on your own and I think you'd be successful. I think it'll take you a lot longer and I think it'll be a lot more headache. Or
very true.
You could join a franchise. Yes, you'll pay a franchise fee. Yes, you'll pay a royalty. But I think we can together get to your goals faster and even exceed your goals. So I'd start there just because I'm acknowledging that you might be thinking I could do it on my own. Why do I need a franchise? So first I would acknowledge that. And then I would go through and explain to you all the different things we're going to do to help you become successful faster. Then I would probably want to spend time understanding if water restoration is the space you want to be in. Do you want to do that business in general?
Why do you like that?
Yeah. Why do you like that? What's your goal? Where do you want to be? If things about your goals don't align with where I know this business can go, then I'm not going to sell it to you because that's a waste. And so it's all about identifying if, your interests are aligned.
Yeah, I like that. But also you're realizing should you waste your time or not? If somebody's like not a good buyer, like you can understand like, okay, I'm not going to sell to this person. This is not good.
Right. Like I'll give you an example. Like at this point, not everyone's a franchise owner. A lot of people would be better off just doing it on their own. If we identify that someone's going to challenge every single, the color of the truck and the brand, like that's what you're buying, right? It's a system. Doesn't mean that brilliant ideas are not coming from franchise owners. They absolutely are. But we want people that 8 out of 10 times they're going to kind of follow the system and not try to challenge and reinvent the wheel. If you're going to want to reinvent the wheel, you're better off not doing a franchise, and that's fine. We're not for everyone, and everyone's not for us.
What's your advice for someone starting with no money or any connection?
No money and no connections. So in this case, let's say move to America and knew no one. I think that you obviously have to make money to support yourself, but I would definitely chase the connections more than the money.
Connections more than
I think that if you have no money, then to start a business, then it's about connections. Because if you make the right connections, you could find someone that has money and believes in you, and you can become a minority partner and kind of get going somewhere. I think that I would focus on connections first. Again, obviously you have to make money to pay your bills, but versus like, I'm going to save this amount of money, then I'm going to start a business. Any amount of money with no connections, it doesn't matter.
Right. So connections are probably the most important thing.
Becomes first. Yeah. If you can have both, great. If you can be a 7 in both, right? But if you had to choose between the two, I would pay my bills somehow, and then I would focus on making connections.
Let's say you lost all the money today for some reason, and you wake up tomorrow. What is the first thing you do?
I guess I would cry a little bit, No. If I lost all the money and I woke up tomorrow, so I have no responsibilities either?
Yeah, it's like, let's say your life, like right now. Okay.
Well, I think I'd probably I'd go to Croatia for a couple of weeks and think. Seriously, I would go there, and it's rare in your life when you don't have the stresses of the day-to-day of a business. So I'd at least try to enjoy that I don't have anyone calling me. But first thing that I would do is I would spend time writing down everything that made me successful, and then whatever I did wrong that caused me to all of a sudden not have any money. I would definitely be able to start another business even faster because I know what I did well and what I didn't do well. And then what I would do is I would start making a tremendous amount of phone calls to friends and family and previous customers and my whole network that I've built. Because remember, I didn't lose my connections, right? In this case,
you didn't lose your connections.
I would call all my connections, and I would ask them for the biggest pain in their life right now, especially if it relates to my industry I was already in. And I would just sit there and write down the pain that people have, right? And over time, start to see a pattern of a lot of people have this pain. There's no solution for it. They're actively desiring to solve that pain. And then I would build a business around that. So I basically would leverage my connections to find another, kind of vertical or pain point that people have that I could potentially solve. Then I would study the industry and make sure it's an industry I want to be in. And then last thing I would do, and Richard Branson, the CEO of Virgin Records, says this the best. Richard Branson's the billionaire that billionaires want to be, because not only is he wealthy, but he's got a great lifestyle. Runs like 400 companies. And one of Richard Branson's best lines is, if you want to be successful, find the number one guy at the number 2 guy at the number one company and ask them to be your business partner. So let's say we identified, some pain point with shoes, and we're going to make this type of shoe that solves that pain point. I did the research on the industry. I would go out and I would find the number 2 at the number one company in shoes, maybe not of Nike or something, can't afford them, but someone who's talented in that particular industry. And I would say, hey, I got this great idea. I'm a seasoned entrepreneur. Here's the pain point. Here's the vision. I'd like you to be my partner and have, equity in it, and then go to that market. And I wouldn't have to know anything about shoes outside of what I learned from my conversations, because I would bring in someone that's an expert.
Very good. What is your weakness? What do you think is your biggest weakness?
Well, it's funny. Weaknesses change as things grow. At this size company, personally or work-wise?
Could be both.
At work, I think it's challenging to go from that startup environment, and we're a much larger company now, and so things have to move a little slower. And so that patience.
Patience. Okay.
Patience, yeah. And then patience.
And in private too?
In private? No. I'm sure Antonia's got a different opinion. But for me, I would say, being ambitious is a blessing and a curse. Enjoying the moment you're in and realizing it's something you wished for 10 years ago that you're in now. I'm always working on it, but it's definitely not a natural skill. So weakness would be not necessarily enjoying the moments I'm in as much as I could, being present in them.
Do you think that it has to do something with like a little breath work, or what do you think can help to be a little more present, to be a little slower, to practice something? Do you use some tools? Do you think you're missing something there?
Yeah, I do find I'm more present, in like the sauna.
In Croatia.
I am more in Croatia, with a glass of wine in the evening. I am definitely very present. So maybe the secret's just to move there, but yeah, I am in Europe overall. I'm more present. I'm also on vacation, so that probably helps. But I guess I would say in a future life, maybe I'm there in the summers or something, because I do find myself more present there.
Mm-hmm. Be honest. Would you choose a glass of wine in New York in a beautiful restaurant, or you would choose in the middle of next to the beautiful beach and beach club in Croatia?
This isn't even a question. In Croatia.
Croatia.
As the alcohol here affects you so much more. The wine is more sulfates. You wake up, you feel more hungover than you do when you have wine in Croatia. But with that said, for a period of time, I'm sure you feel the same way, right? I mean, you moved here for a reason. You're building a life. I'm sure you go back to Serbia and it's great, but you probably wouldn't want to be there all year because you're building a life here. And so, I think the answer would be usually there, but I do like to be here too. And
love that. What is your proudest moment with Voda so far?
Yeah, it's coming up actually. So we have our first annual conference on June 11th. And this is all of our franchise owners, some of their teams, some of their spouses, my team, their spouses, all in a room with a blue, Voda's blue. So a blue carpet event, not a red carpet, blue carpet event, tuxedos in Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. The moment I'm handing out the awards and there's that, sea of people that are all wearing the Voda shirt, that'll be it.
Great. What advice would you give to someone from Serbia or Croatia dreaming of starting a business in America?
It's a great one. What advice would I give to someone
from Balkan region?
Yeah. I'm not saying Voda, could be Voda, but in general, I think franchise ownership is a great vehicle for someone that wants to start out. If you're have a good, you're personable, you find like you're a good salesperson, home services is amazing space. I would look at, low investment franchise opportunities if they, have the capital to do that. If they were looking to start with less capital, my advice would be really centered around making those connections. Put yourself out there, go to the places that, you might not be comfortable, and just, build relationships. But if you have some capital or some ability, I think, there's lower investment opportunities or higher investment opportunities. But I think franchising is a great vehicle to learn business. That's why I'm so passionate about it. Yeah, that would be my advice.
What is the worst possible business advice you ever received in your life?
Stop reading books.
Who told you that?
I had a previous colleague that said I was reading too many books and that I should just be doing. And you obviously can't just read books. You got to actually do. But
were you actually always somebody who is doing things on like making actions, or you were like before a little more careful?
Action oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Always been action oriented. There's a saying. I'm not rich by any means, but like the stupidest people get rich. Have you ever heard that?
No.
It's like the people that are like too dumb to fail, they call it, meaning I've never really spent enough time thinking about why something wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I typically spend more time thinking about why it would.
Where is it coming from?
I think it's just optimism. It's just knowing that, again, either you're going to succeed or you're going to fail. And if you fail, you're going to learn, and then you're going to go further. I'll give you a great example. I meet people all the time that are so much more successful than me. And then you say, what did you do? Oh, we started a cardboard manufacturing business. You're like, how the hell did you do that? And they tell you the story, right? And it sounds brilliant. But you have to realize is when you're in the business or the journey, things become clear. So I'll give you an example. Like me being in I didn't just wake up one day and say, water restoration franchise, that would be brilliant. And then just magically it happened. It was the accumulation of all the things that I was doing and all the relationships.
Learning about a franchise forever. Like 2014, that's like 11 years.
Yeah, learning and then seeing things. And then it was like crystal clear to me. Now as
Amazing system, I can make this work.
Yeah. The vision that we have now for where Voda's going to go.
What is it?
I'll tell you, but I did not in any way have that vision when we started. It had to see the playing field to then be able to. Our vision is to build the largest privately held home services platform. And so we want to have Voda be a household name. When you want to do something yourself in your home, do it yourself projects, you go to Home Depot. When you want it done, you go to Voda. And so we envision Voda's in the home. We're doing multiple different services for the homeowner. And to me, keeping the company privately held within myself and my team is very important. We don't want to be sell the business. We want to grow it for the long term.
And pronunciation is almost the same. We say Voda and you say Voda. It's very, very similar, which is great. Do you think also like a lot of American people will learn this name in Croatians, like Serbian, but also in Croatia, we say the same. So
it's funny. We had some issues with the trademark originally because Voda means water in all Slavic languages, and the trademark it was giving us trouble. But we have it now, and absolutely, that's a pretty cool thing that it could grow like that.
Did people ask you, where did you find this name? Or no?
Yeah, they do. If you look at the Voda truck, it looks like it's either a cleaning company or like the next energy drink. It kind of looks. So yeah, I mean, people definitely do ask, but I think it's just one of those names like Nike or it's very it's so random that Uber, Nike. It kind of people just kind of love it.
Great. What is let's say one thing that you would probably bring from Balkan region to US if you have a chance? It can be whatever, or one thing to bring from US to the Balkan region
as a business?
No, doesn't need to be a business. It can be a cultural thing. It can be something else. It can be a food. It can be a business. It can be something else, whatever you like, because you experienced Balkan culture a little bit more, and then people, and then you obviously were born here.
Antonia's family. That would be nice.
It'll be easier for you.
Yes. But also
help your business too.
What's that? Yeah.
It'll help your business.
Just, them being here sometimes would be cool. If I could, bring them here sometimes. No, I would say there's a couple things. So I'm sure you know this, but like there's certain experiences in Croatia and in Europe in general, in Italy as well. I haven't been Serbia yet, but I'm sure it's similar. That in America would be tens of thousands of dollars to do.
For example?
Everything related to the coastline. I mean, there was a day where we were out on the boat and it was, a couple $100, and you're in the most beautiful water, in the most beautiful place. And people are out on their boats and swimming. And in parts of America, this would be the wealthiest of the wealthiest people only can afford to do that.
Go to like Hamptons to do this.
The Hamptons, yes. When I first started,
How much would it cost in the Hamptons?
Thousands of dollars. A house is $20,000 for the month if you're renting it. It's $3 million to own it. At least, right? And in Croatia, you go and it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like the richness of life there is better. I mean, it is as far as from a leisure standpoint, not from a growing a business standpoint, but that whole environment to me is just mind-blowing. I mean, some of the boats you can rent in Croatia with a few friends would be impossible here. And so just like really just like if I could just bring the whole coastline here, our closest thing would be the Hamptons, and it's very expensive.
I like that. What about the book? Like, is there any book that you actually like gave away the most? Like, is there any specific book that you think was the most important that you bought for somebody?
Absolutely. The most? Absolutely. I have a few. So my favorite book when starting out for mindset is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Have you heard of it?
I read that.
That's my favorite.
Multiple times. I started like multiple times, but I read the whole thing. Yes, it's a great book.
Have you read Traction?
No.
Traction by Gino Wickman. The E-Myth, Revisited by Michael Gerber. It's a great business book. And then I would say my favorite book is a book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. It doesn't necessarily apply to someone when they first start a business. But when you get to a point where you have a certain amount of teammates, this is the best book you can read to scale your business. Buy Back Your Time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Is there anything that we didn't cover today, probably, but you want to cover? Like you want to, maybe I missed something today. I think we covered a lot. And
no, these are great questions. No, I mean, I'm curious. It's such an, I'm so appreciative of you having me on the show. I wish I could have done it in Croatian, Serbian, maybe a couple of years. I'm taking some lessons.
Is there any word that you know?
Yeah, I know some.
You know some.
Kako si.
That's great. Dobro. How are you? That's great.
Dobro, hvala na pitanju.
Hvala na pitanju, bravo. Odlično. Then, thank you so much, man. Thank you for your time. And for the very end, I actually give my guests option to ask me a question if they want, but just if they want.
Yeah, I have one. Where did you get the idea for this podcast, and where do you want to take it?
I got this kind of quite a lot. Never in English, but I'm gonna try. It's harder in English. Idea, it's very selfish. I would say that I always wanted to be surrounded with the best people in the room and to learn from people as much as I can. We can be going back to learning thing. I love learning new things. I love reading, and I love like watching videos and like constantly. That's a problem a little bit too. I feel like it's kind of like, I constantly want to improve. There's probably some kind of insecurity there that like I don't feel good enough ever. But it's also, it gives you more knowledge and gives you like, I feel like I become better. That's for sure. I definitely wanted to be, again, surrounded people who can help me to be best version of myself. And then I said to myself, okay, I'm in New York. This is a great chance to meet these amazing people. And it's not that hard. It is, but it's not. And wanted to show a little bit that a little different approach like how can we actually help people to become better version of themselves. That's the easiest way. Where I want to take it, I know I have a clear vision when it comes to this, that I want to first be somebody who, for example, interview maybe 200 people. And for now, I'm not really crazy about where do I want to take this, but I do want to build some business out of this. I want to listen to myself. I want to, as I said, I improved a lot by doing this, and I feel like I would do this anyway without even, getting paid at all. So that gives me like a signal that I should continue doing this. And I feel we have a great feedback and people are really loving it, and we help a lot of people. I feel good about it. So as long as I have that feeling, I'm going to continue to do this. Until when? We'll see. But I definitely know myself. I'm not going to stop doing this until I actually interview the most number of people in the US area. And I do this in Serbia when I go there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So I do this podcast also in the Balkan region sometimes.
I don't know if we're still recording, but...
Yeah, we are. We are.
I'll ask this after.
No, you can ask me now. It's okay.
And you do this like full time, or like do you like?
No, I do this like kind of like 40% of my time. Like 60% I am one-on-one like personal training coach. And this was kind of easy for me because the clientele that I have here in front of me, it's like my clients outside of this.
See, to me, that's what I was talking. I think it's so cool when people can be successful at two different things, and something that maybe originally you started as like, I'll try this thing and do it on, and then it grows into something like that. Like, give you an example. Goldman Sachs, I don't think anymore, but only recently, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, this giant, buttoned up investment firm. He also DJs.
Amazing.
But he DJs like huge shows. So he's amazing at two different things in completely different disciplines. I think that's cool.
I just realized that if I'm not able to talk in front of the camera, like 5 to 10 years, even now, but let's say 5 to 10 years from now, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
This is not a comfort zone for me, of course. I'm learning. I'm still learning. I'm still getting more comfortable. I guess I'm getting better. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But that's how you put yourself in. Like, I like putting myself in this comfort, like a little like uncomfortable situation. Yeah. Especially in front of the camera, because that's how you learn and you grow and you become better. Yeah. That gives me also one additional, reason why am I doing this. Yeah. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for your time. And, for
thank you.
Amazing insights. I think this is going to be great for people to hear your opinion about, creation and Serbians and all of this. Thank you for such a nice words about Balkan region. That means a lot to me because I know these people will appreciate this. And also thank you for amazing kind of like insights and knowledge and experience that you share with us today. Very like some of them are personal, and I feel like this was great. I wish you, with Voda, all the best in the future. I know you're killing it, but I want you to kill even more. I see you're super ambitious, and I love that because I'm the same way.
Absolutely.
Thank you, brother. Hvala svima koji ste ostali do kraja. Ova epizoda je, kao što i vidite sami, bila na engleskom, ali znam da je vredalo. Hvala svima na konstantnoj podršci. Mi se već vidimo za nedelju dana. Pozdravljam vas sve. Prijetno.